Hi, welcome back for True Colors audiobook. This is chapter 22. And in the last episode, we left Cassie and Michael outside the gates of the stockade. Cassie was about to be shot. So let's go right there and join them.
True Colors, Chapter 22. I froze in place as the impact of the bullets exploded around my feet. A black form flew past me, nearly knocking me down. Michael's feet hit the ground like a lightning strike. He stumbled, recovered, and ran to position himself between me and the two tower sentries. He raised his hands toward them. "Don't shoot! She won't run! Do you hear? Don't shoot!" The eyes of the sentries lifted from behind the sights of their Spencer repeating rifles, but the weapons remained tucked against the men's shoulders, ready to fire again. Michael stood fast, his arms spread, his body shielding mine. I trembled uncontrollably. He let out a sharp whistle. Midnight trotted to where we stood. With an eye on the blockhouses, Michael placed his hands on my waist and lifted me onto the horse's back. Taking the reins in hand, he led me back through the heavy gates and across the compound. Justin ran up to us. "Are you all right, Cassie?" "No, she's not all right," Michael spat and urged the horse into a faster walk. "Leave us alone." His hardened gaze swept through the gathering crowd of men staring in bewilderment. "All of you, leave us alone." Upon reaching my cabin, Michael lifted me to the ground and seized my arms. "Just what did you think you were doing out there?" His frenzy compounded my grief. I looked down at the crumpled letter in my hand. I lost Greg." His hands loosened and his voice lost its severity. "Dear God, no." He placed a now tender hand behind my shoulder and drew me gently to him. I pressed my face into his chest and cried. He led me into the cabin, closing the door behind us to isolate us from the growing crowd. "Cassie, please forgive me. It wasn't truly anger I was feeling out there. When I looked up and saw those rifle barrels aimed at you, I was crazed with fear. In that instant, I thought I was about to witness your death. After situating yourself between me and a sentry's bullet, you are apologizing to me?" He encircled me in his arms. "I'm so very sorry about Greg. I know your heart is breaking. You're the only one who knows. That's why I had to reach you. I understand. You won't have to bear this alone." I stepped back and looked at the letter I still gripped in my hand. I just can't believe he's gone. Those last days he and Eric and I spent together hold some of my most precious memories. Now they're both gone. He wiped a fallen tear from my cheek. "Never forget the words of Thomas Paine that your cousins wanted you to keep in your heart. Those two were no summer soldiers or sunshine patriots. They were honorable men in life and in death. He died at a place called Chickamauga?" He shook his head in sorrow. We sat on my cot together and read the remainder of my letters. In the midst of my grief over Greg, I learned more about how the war was affecting my friends and family in Pennsylvania and Colorado. But blessed news came from Hawaii. Hannah was in a family way. Her baby was due around Christmas, only a month away. "So often when the Lord takes something or someone from us," I said, "He blesses us in a new way, or with a new life. I'm sure Greg and Eric would have wanted you to see it." His expression changed. "What is it?" After a moment, he shook off whatever had gripped him. "It's nothing." A thought of my own took hold of me. "Oh, Michael, what have I done? News of the commotion I made is sure to make its way to the commandant and even to Richmond. What will happen when they find out you smuggled letters to me?" He gave that Byron shrug. "I'll just tell them it came to my attention that there was a considerable amount of mail accumulating for you in Alexandria. that I figured your family would be concerned about not hearing from you and would become suspicious of your whereabouts, so I brought you the letters. Smuggled sounds illicit. They can only conclude it's fundamentally in the Confederacy's best interest to allow you to keep up correspondence with your family, to keep them from acting on their suspicions. I knew he could pull it off, right down to his choice of words. Awed by his gift of persuasion, I was also unsettled by it. That evening he informed his superiors of the incident before they could hear it through someone else's lips. He returned the next morning with writing supplies and recounted the spirited exchange between him and Justin's Uncle William. After his face turned a couple of shades of red and a few veins popped out of his temples, he eventually conceded that in the long run it was a good thing it happened, and insisted that you immediately write your family. He wants me to write to my family? You'll have to write as if you're still living and working in Alexandria, and the letters will be mailed and postmarked from there. And all your correspondence, incoming and outgoing, will be read by someone else first and possibly censored. It's a precious enough thing for me to be able to reestablish a lifeline with my loved ones. I wrote a few quick letters while Michael performed some minor repairs to the cabin. I'll inform the Commandant of other things that need remedied before cold weather sets in. His attention was captured by 2 large books that sat on the corner of my desk. "Medical texts," he snorted. "I don't need to ask where you got them. I've learned a great deal from them, and from him since I've been here. I'm so glad to hear that. I was concerned you might not be enjoying yourself." I slammed my pencil on the desktop. Why is it that the mere mention of anything or anyone that has to do with medicine sets you off like a short-fused firecracker? What sets me off is him, and how blind you are to what he's trying to do. He's not trying to do anything. He just gives me books and answers my questions and teaches me about the sciences. For what purpose? Because it's fascinating to us both. I think what he's fascinated by has nothing to do with science. What do you mean by that? Come on, Cassie. How dull-witted have you become in the past 3.5 months? His intentions are obvious. You're wrong, Michael. Am I? Yes. Then you tell him... The tiny muscles in his jaw quivered. Never mind. I'll tell him myself. He snatched up the books and tramped out the door, slamming it shut behind him. "Michael!" I raced to the door and flung it open. With forceful strides he crossed the compound, his destination certain. The object of his wrath appeared in the doorway of the infirmary, stepped onto the well-trodden path between the building and my quarters, and started to walk it. I stood dumbstruck, looking on as the 2 men approached each other. Then I darted toward them, hoping to thwart the confrontation, but I was too late. "I want to talk to you, St. John," Michael called as the distance between them closed. The 2 men halted with their boot tips inches apart. I halted several yards behind Michael. "What is it this time, Colonel?" "I know what it is you're trying to do. I want it to stop." "What exactly are you talking about?" "I want you to stay away from Cassie." "Well, that would be more than a little difficult under the circumstance. No more books, either." He propelled the ponderous volumes into Justin's chest, where they impacted like lodestones to a magnet. "Why such a violent reaction to them, Colonel?" "You're using them to try to draw her away from the things that mean the most to her." "Are you sure you still know what means the most to her?" "I'm telling you for the last time, stay away from my wife." My breath caught. From where I stood, I couldn't see if Michael's expression betrayed his own shock at his slip, or if he even recognized his misstep. "She's not your wife yet, Byron, and you have no right to think of her as such, especially after all you've put her through. I don't pretend to know all of the mysterious circumstances under which she was brought here or why she has to stay, but I'm convinced it's you who is responsible for her imprisonment. And you dare to imply that a few books will bring harm to her? His fiery glare shifted to me. The gesture was more than enough of a clue, and Michael turned to look upon me. I stared at the two men. Michael started to speak, but I pivoted and walked back to my quarters. Feelings of anger and dysphoria and ongoing grief vying for mastery of me. It was Michael who eventually followed and entered my cabin without knocking. I slid the last of my letters into its envelope and curtly passed all of them to him. "They're ready for your censors." He took them, but otherwise gave no evidence he was willing to leave. "I have to go to work, Michael." I moved to walk past him, but he took hold of my arm. "I resent that man's interference." "What interference? He brings me books, and he's kind to me and teaches me. We've become friends, that's all." "He's falling for you, Cassie. I can hardly fault him for that now, can I? But he believes you're free to choose between us. It's at your insistence that he believes I'm unmarried, and all it would take for that to happen is a judge's signature." My words startled him. They startled me. After placing himself in front of me and shielding me, how could I say this? But his juvenile throwing down of the gauntlet to Justin was enraging. "You're not still entertaining the notion of an annulment. No prison wall can take away my freedom of choice, remember? An annulment is not a viable choice. You're the one who has provided the grounds for the dissolution of our counterfeit marriage. There's nothing counterfeit about it. My love for you is real. The preacher was real." He pulled me close. His arms enclosed me, and he kissed me firmly, just when I thought his passion would conquer and my own repressed urges were again being aroused. He pushed away from me. "Not like this," he seemed to say more to himself than to me. He stepped to the side of my cot and rubbed away drops of sweat from his face. "Not here. Not this way." He turned to me. "Is that what you really want, Cassie? To be free to choose?" "What I want is what I had in Alexandria before you went away. Only I want it to be the truth." He beheld me for a long moment with eyes of misted blue. "No stroke of a judge's pen could ever make me stop thinking of you as my wife." He stepped past me and paused at the door. "And no other man's kiss will ever keep you from thinking back on mine." For once, he spoke the unadulterated truth. I crossed the compound to begin another day of tending wounds, washing linens and instruments, boiling rags, listening to stories of battles and bows, and seeking refuge away from all of it. But there was none. And there was no refuge from the echoes of my last conversation with my husband. No stroke of a judge's pen could ever make me stop thinking of you as my wife. Nor could it for me. And no other man's kiss will ever keep you from thinking back on mine. I knew from the very first kiss I received from Michael Byron that his was the one that would make me forget all others. Only I want it to be the truth. I wanted that more than anything else. Someone else's soul-stirring words came to me then and provided me the only semblance of hope I'd known in a long time. "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free."
Jesus said, "No greater love does a man have than this, than he lay down his life for his friends." That's what Michael was willing to do for Cassie. It proves the genuineness of his love for her. It's also making him protective and a little jealous even of her friendship with Justin. Join them next time, and I hope that in the meantime you like, subscribe, and share these videos. See you next time.